You're listening to the Salty Sex Cast with Mariah and friends. Minimize the fear. Expand your awareness.
Well, hello, folks. It's Mariah, the host of the Salty Sex Cast. I am back with a new friend I'm excited to introduce you all to. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for tuning in, for being brave enough to push play. If somebody shared this podcast with you, I want you to give them a shout out. You can send us an email at saltysexcast@gmail.com. Let us know who shared that with you. We're always doing fun giveaways, and we want to just thank our friends who share this and all of our listeners. If you're just tuning in for the first time, my name's Mariah. I'm the host, and I have a master's degree in health promotion education, and I'm a nationally board certified health and wellness coach and a certified health education specialist. So I love to share messages that are deeply rooted in sex education and scientific research, but I also love to have fun and make it entertaining and not scary. We want to minimize the fear and just expand our awareness around sex and sexuality. And my guest today is here to help me do that. So I have Leah Holmgren, who's the author of a fantastic book we'll talk about in just a minute. But she's also a performance coach. So she meets with folks to help them be high performers. Part of that is your sexuality. Part of that is so many other places in your life too. But Leah, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hi, Mariah. Nice to meet you, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm good.
Wonderful. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about this wonderful book you've wrote.
Oh, yeah. It's Hook Up Without Heartbreak: How to Feel Empowered After Casual Sex. So I wrote it for mainly women, but men love it too, and are actually buying probably the same amount of books these days because it has 4 parts. And first and second is more for women, and the
Mm.
third and fourth is for men as well. The fourth is only for men. The third one is for men and women. And the second, a lot of men actually love the tips how to protect your heart as well.
Mm.
So, yeah, there are 25 of them. And I wrote them because I wanted to help people to actually deal with the aftermath after sex,
Mm.
and not how to hook up or how to do it right. That most people know. But when things don't go as planned and you're suddenly stuck in this limbo after, or like in this communication mess, what do you do? And that's why I
Mm.
wrote the book. For the people that have no problem with communicating, or they have no issues, or they have no problem to hook up and move on, it's not for them. But for people, they have a little bit of struggle afterwards and want to know how to actually feel good about themselves, how to say no if they don't want to see someone again, and how to say it gracefully so they don't hurt others. I think
Mm.
that's the book. That's why I wrote the book.
How wonderful. And I mean, we have this dual culture, I feel like that's always fighting, one hand, hookup culture is terrible and it's the end of our society and yada, yada, yada. And it's the spread of all this, root of evil. And then we have this other side of that who's saying, it's very empowering and we can find our voice and we can find a lot of wonderful things through hookups, casual sex. And it doesn't have to always lead or be the goal of a long term relationship. Giving folks permission and just quieting that shame a little bit with this book. So I'm so happy to have something out there for people who are looking for that.
Yeah. I think like for the research that I've done for this book, I read so many studies, and it was interesting because what I found in the research is that people, they are judgmental towards casual sex, and they find casual sex not healthy, or they feel shame around that sex. They
Mm.
will have a hard time to deal with casual sex afterwards. And people that are more open-minded and sexually free, and they kind of are exploring, they will feel empowered. And that's why I even said in the book at the beginning, it's not for everyone. We have to know ourselves. And I said, if you're one of these people that is judgmental towards sex and you think it's dirty, you're probably going to have a hard time afterwards. And sure, you
Mm.
can change mind. It's not always the rule, but that's the majority of people.
Hmm.
And yeah, so you never know, how it's going to feel.
Well, if casual sex and hookups without shame and guilt is your thing, this is definitely the episode for you. Um, Now let's first talk about what got you into this topic. What interested Leah to follow this to write a book?
I used to work as a coach and I specialized on intimacy in relationships before COVID for many, many years. And I wrote the book because I wanted to help people and younger generations to actually make sense out of the sexuality that they are going through and how to
Mm,
navigate through all of this, because we have a revolution, so to say, and things are changing. So I wanted to help a lot of my clients. They would come to me and talk to me about this topic. I just figured out, let me just write a book for them, and they can download and read the tips and help better and feel better with the book, and they don't need to go to a coach to discuss these topics, because I had many women, they would reach out to me and come to me and tried me to
mm,
help them write messages and text messages to guys, and I found it just really time wasting for them, because it's very simple task that we shouldn't spend so much time thinking about, in my
mm.
opinion. So there's a lot on the communication. Like it's almost like, the books that you choose your route and you say, okay, where do I want to go? And then you scroll to page and you go to another page. So that's something like that. Like, I have scenarios of communication when you hook up with someone, what's possible afterwards, and then you can just go to
Mm.
these tips.
I love that. That's so wonderful. And that same story that you're saying of you were meeting with people who primarily were asking for some of these tips and just needed like a guidebook or something helpful. Um, that is exactly why I started the podcast, because myself as a coach, meeting with people one on one, finding that they're having difficulty exploring all these different topics, understanding and navigating something complex like human sexuality without shame, without fear, and then having good, not too much in your face information either. And so that's so great. So the same reason you wrote this book is the same reason I started this podcast.
Yeah,
Um,
just to be able to reach to masses, to help
yes.
more people with one project, I would say. And
Yeah.
that was my goal. And I also love sex. I think it's great, and I struggled a lot in the past when I was growing up, because I was very open minded and I lived in a little city, and until you move to like New York or Paris or London or wherever I lived in big cities, that was quite fine. But I can imagine a lot of people in smaller cities would like to have fun time too, but they just don't want to do it because of the judgment.
Hmm.
And so I think that was also like my personal story why I wanted to write the book. you know
Mm.
so it's always like that. When we create something, we want to help ourselves and others too, so it's quite
Always.
interesting. Yeah.
Always. That's so great. Well, I'm so glad you listened to that call and that need for something, a resource like this for so many people out there. Um, as you were writing it and doing your own research, what really stuck with you? What really resonated with you as you were putting this together?
It's interesting because the older research that was like 10 years and older was mostly focusing on the negatives of casual sex.
Mm,
And the new research that was like last 5 to 10 years, that was focusing a lot on the positives of casual sex. So I could see the transition there, which was quite interesting. And I liked it a lot. That made me happy. I'm like, okay, now people are actually focusing on the positives and advantages. And I wrote 10 advantages and 10 disadvantages of casual sex. So,
mm,
you can read them and say, okay, this is what is expected to happen. This is what's great. Of course, it doesn't have to always happen. There are a lot of tips for girls how to recognize players, and it's just like really fun book.
yeah.
Because some women might want to have a player if they want to play, if that's all they want. Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go on that topic for just a minute. How do you know someone is worth seeking out a hookup with in the first place?
It's hard to say, but I feel like the chemistry you have with someone at the beginning is very important. I mean, I think that you can tell pretty much the first time you see someone if you want to play with them or not. It's not a rocket science. Sure, like maybe from male perspective, if they see a hot woman, they want to have sex with her. She might not want to be responsive, so guys have to do more work. But for us women, actually, we have a very easy situation, I would say, because if woman wants to have sex, she will. It's much easier than for a guy. Even with like imagine a woman wants to have sex, and I want to help women to actually take advantage of this because they don't. And like imagine poor guys, like they have to do all this work to go on dates and try to be respectful and constant, and now it's becoming even worse. So like as a woman, if you see someone and you have chemistry, all you need to do is to say what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
like I can guarantee you 99% of time you will get what you want. If there is a chemistry, of course. Like you flirt with a guy and in the moment you say, "Hey, I want to have sex with you," that's it. You know? If
Yeah.
guys say that, they have a hard time these days. They're considered creepy or, disrespectful. And women, we don't take advantage of what we can actually ask. And I'm not
Yeah.
suggesting we should be disrespectful, but just I like when we are direct. I love when we
And
are real.
forward. Yes.
Yeah.
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 I think it's really fun and powerful too, because then you're so empowered. You're calling the shots when typical gender roles, women are not. They're usually the one that's trying to hold off somebody they're not interested in. So as soon as they own that power and they seek it out, like it's just really incredible to have that empowering experience. Um, so let's say we found someone with chemistry, we had the hookup, and it was awful. What are some tips navigating a situation like that where you're just like, oh, we did not jive as soon as it started, or right after, and it was just like, lousy.
You mean the sex was bad?
Yeah, just the it wasn't what we were expecting, and so it kind of wasn't great.
It depends, if you like his company and he had some fun, he was great. He invited you for a nice dinner or whatever it is, and you enjoyed the time, but the sex was not the best. I think there is always room for improvement because like
Mm.
guys are also nervous the first time and maybe we weren't communicating clearly. I coached many women, they had amazing guys and the guys were really bad in sex, and they told them that they're not satisfied, and the guys would be like, yeah, but I was in relationships 3-4 years before or 6 years, and my wife or my ex-girlfriend never said
Mm.
anything. And that's the problem, that women oftentimes don't communicate and guys are guessing, and that's also a wrong approach. We need to
Yes.
communicate, and that's why if it was a fun guy, he looked great, or things were working well besides the sex, and give it another shot, I would say. Why
Okay.
not? We can, with the training,
Feedback.
just, yeah,
Yeah.
feedback. Tell him, I think would like to meet up. And once you're in a sexual situation, maybe go slower and just, like when you do massage, you tell the massage therapist also what you want to do. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
that's great. Yeah, do it right there. Oh, right there on my back.
Yeah. A little higher, a little to the
Yeah,
left,
exactly.
Yeah. I think
Simpler.
that is a big point of fear for people to give feedback in the moment, especially if they're like, oh, this is just a hookup, it's a one-time thing.
Yeah, but that's
It's
exactly
okay
when
to
you have a
have.
good sex.
Exactly. And so they
Yeah.
accept
Yeah.
having mediocre or maybe not great
Mm.
experience because they're like, we'll just, oh, well, it's not worth investing the time and
No,
feedback. But it is
it
what I'm
is.
hearing you say. It's so worth it to give feedback. And there's ways to communicate that isn't so hurtful or rude either. It can even be fun and sexy, and add to that chemistry too.
Yeah, I think, why would we give our body to someone if we don't want to make the best out of the experience?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's a waste. Like, if I would just be with someone, say, oh, it's just a quickie, or it's just no, because the first time hookups or casual hookups are some of the best. When you're with someone for a long time, you're going to be trying to find this novelty, and it's not going to
Mm.
be there, so you might as well take advantage of the moment. And the way to communicate is not being offending someone and say, oh, you're terrible while you're licking me, or no, that's not the way to do it. Just say, I want you to do this, or I wish, I would like you to do it like this, and
Mm.
that's it. We don't need to
Yeah.
say, oh, I don't like how you're licking me, do it this way, because that brings the negativity into the
Mm-hmm.
act. Say, you know what, I like it this way. And there are guys, they would, don't know if you like it. Let's say oral sex, some guys don't do it because they don't know if you like it. Some guys don't want to do it. Some guys
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to say, I will never lick a woman I'm just casual with.
Mm. Yeah.
So that's like, okay, well then, I'm sorry, but there will
Mm-hmm.
be no second chance. Like, for me personally, if
Yeah.
guy would tell me this,
That's a deal breaker.
it's a deal
Come on.
breaker. Yeah, for casual sex, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's all about communication. When you can tell him, it's like, hey, you forgot to eat me out. And if he's like, then he's not into it, and then you just might move on
Yeah.
from guy like
So
that.
honoring boundaries while also still providing feedback and what you need as well. And that's okay. And sometimes hookups are the best practice for communication because if I totally fumble and mess up and make a fool of myself, oh well, I can not see you again. Practice for somebody maybe I want to have a longer term relationship with, or have that potential.
Yeah,
So there's always this thing, and I feel like it is a very typical sex role of maybe there's a hookup and then the guy ghosts the girl, or even sometimes vice versa. Um,
yeah,
how do you help folks navigate being ghosted?
yeah. I have a chapter on that too, and I interviewed like 50 guys, for each of them over 2 hours almost. Yeah, around that time in COVID for the book, and only 2 out of 50 say they ever ghost people.
Hmm.
So it was usually guys in early 20s, but like guys 25, 28 and older, and the older they were getting, they would never do it. But if it happens, honestly, like, just be happy it happened, because that person is not worth your time.
Yeah, it gives you an answer, and the non-answer is an answer. You don't have to worry about it
Yeah,
and sit here and
exactly.
guess.
No answer is an
Sometimes,
answer. Yeah. And then, like, girls
exactly.
are like, oh, I'm worried what happened to him. I'm like, well, look, you reach out to him. If he doesn't reply, he might not have seen the message. That happens a lot. Then send the message again. Say, hey, I haven't heard back from you. I just want to know if everything is fine. Are you okay? And if he doesn't reply to that, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, twice, and that's it. That's my rule. And sometimes guys or girls also would block on social media and everywhere. And that, I
Wow.
mean, yeah, it happens a lot. What I hear from stories, but not the guys I was interviewing, but I heard from guys and girls. So that when I was doing coaching, it's like, they just ghost. But this is also like people that are emotionally unstable, or they are not
Mm,
emotionally intelligent. Like,
yeah.
only babies are doing this. So then if this happens to you, you really be happy that you only spend one time with this person, because imagine you would be dating them for a while and they have this kind of emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's not worth your emotional labor trying to pull them back in either. Well, what if I've texted twice and I haven't heard back, or I've messaged twice. Let me send a sexy photo to try to get their attention again. And it's like, do you really want to pull that type of person back in? Or do you want to just say, hey, your non answer is the answer I needed. to know
Mhm.
that you're not the right person for me to continue spending time on. Or unless that's maybe a kink for you and you dig it, I don't want to also say that that's not for everyone. Um, but typically there's a good way to navigate being ghosted, and that sometimes I would rather have that if I had to make a choice. Like I'd rather someone ghost me because I feel like that's a perfect, like in the sand, like that's a line in the sand, you know that that's an answer, versus cryptic messages that are kind of like humming and hawing back and forth.
Yeah.
They seem interested and then they fall off, and then they pick
Mm.
back up and they fall off. And I think that's far more frustrating than if someone just cut it off and ghosted,
It all
disappeared.
depends, because the point of hooking up is not to want the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm trying to teach women. We need to disconnect these two. And if you disconnect these two, you don't care about if he reaches out or not. What
Yeah.
I what I suggest is like to all women, it's like, you meet up with someone, you hook up, it's great. And now he has this wacky conversation, like he texts and he doesn't have a wacky conversation too, whatever. Like if he texts you one night and he wants to hook up and you're horny, why not? Go for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't text you for 2 months, I'm never going to see him again. No, that's a wrong approach because why? You don't want to date this guy. That's a hookup. And that's what we need to really disconnect and have the mindset of he is there for sex and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you are horny one night and text him out and say, hey, I'm really horny. Do you want to come over? Maybe he will come.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm
Yes.
teaching women. Just have this mindset. It doesn't matter if he texts you once or twice. If you're falling in love for him and you feel it's unbearable, then that's a different story. Then I have also tips on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you do when you are falling in love? Then, of course, it's better to stop. It doesn't matter if even it's the hardest thing, and it was really difficult for me to write. But if you're with someone that you know he's not going to be your boyfriend or husband, and you're
Mm-hmm.
falling in love with them, he might not be you can be sleeping with guys you're not going to marry.
Yeah.
That's fine. But you know that there's not you need to be very, very rational about it. Like sometimes I would have lovers that I knew that they will never be my husbands because they would be in industry that, like my priorities that I have with men, they wouldn't have a steady job, steady career. Like I knew that I have fun with them. But if I would be falling in love with a guy like that and I knew this is a disaster for me, just cut it out. And if you want, if it's someone you really like and has all what you need for more than just a hookup, and you are falling in love with the guy that could be the guy, you can just tell him the truth because you never know. We are good
Yes.
with hiding our feelings because we are both scared, not just us, the men are scared too. You can just say,
Mm-hmm.
I'm falling in love with you, dude. And, what are we going to do? Do
Yeah.
you have any feelings for me? Do you want to do something more? Or if not, and it's really hard to have great sex with someone and find him amazing and have to cut it off. That's really difficult.
Yes. And you have to mourn that change in that relationship. But you know what's really great for that mourning period?
Yeah.
Hookups.
Yeah.
Moving forward and moving on, and understanding that I think a big one is going into that hookup knowing it's a hookup,
Yeah.
and also communication. I think you said it so well. Communication for both people, making sure that they understand this is what is my goal with this.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for a relationship, or I'm not this, that, or the other. Um, what happens when maybe you're juggling multiple partners that are still in that hookup range? So you're not in a relationship. You're probably not even looking for one, but you're hooking up with more than one person.
That's the best. When you're single, why would you just be with one? You have two,
Yes.
three. It's the best. I love it. It's called have your lovers on rotation. I'm not
Mm,
sure what tip is that, but it's nice. I mean, if you live just once, if you're single, why would you just have one person? It doesn't make any sense.
mm.
Just of course, like you want to be safe, That's the only thing health wise, but there are condoms for that, and I think it's great. It's not for everyone, but I personally loved it.
Yeah.
And I tell women, don't have any shame to do it, because trust me, most men do it, and if they don't do it, it's because they can't, but they would love to.
Mm.
It's
That's
fine.
funny.
Just enjoy. I mean, like, if one of them is like not acting the way you want, you have the another two.
Yeah.
So you will
Lovers
never
on
be
rotation.
lonely. Exactly. It's fun.
What are some other tips to help navigate? Is this something, and I have to speak from a place of this was 12 plus years ago when I was ever in this range of multiple partners and hookups.
Yeah.
So
Same
it's
here.
hard for me to really picture it
Very
exactly.
long
So it
time
could be
ago. I'm
different.
trying to remember how it was, but
Right. Um, do you suggest folks tell their rotating lovers, hey, I'm hooking up with other
no.
people? No, you don't.
You look, you are clear about this is casual and we do
Mm-hmm.
whatever we want besides this relationship. But why would you tell them details? You're not obliged to say what you do when you're not with them. That's why that's the beauty of hookups. Like, I mean, look, first of all, you're not obliged to say anything because it's your private life. This person doesn't need to know absolutely anything about your life. And why would you just, it can just have negative effect. I don't see any pluses of being honest with this. Like, it's
Mm.
different when you want to start dating someone and you're progressing to the stages of more than just casual sex.
Yeah.
Then maybe you can say, hey, you want to date me, but I'm not in the spot where I could have just one partner. I'm seeing 2 3 other people. Yeah, sure, then it's different.
Yeah.
But it's only gonna bring jealousy, and the guy is probably gonna be like, okay, nah, and then it's gonna probably harm the sex too. Like, I personally wouldn't
Mm,
want, wouldn't want to know what my boy toys or like my lovers are doing in their free time. Like, I
mm.
wouldn't want to know that back then. Like, it's just for me, it kills the vibe personally.
Yeah.
And I know that the people were having other people, but I didn't talk about it. This is just what you don't talk about.
So it's something that, just like you said, be safe, but also
Yeah.
be clear that this is casual.
Yeah.
And so when someone tells you, hey, this is casual, you're free to make the assumption they probably have a few other folks on the side, maybe just one
Yeah. Yeah.
other or something. It's always a potential.
Yeah.
So it's not on that person to always have to say.
Yeah.
But I can understand if maybe there was an STI and it was, I need to tell you that I have another lover or whatever, and I have an outbreak of this, that, or the other. Yes, that's a great time to tell someone that there are other partners there. But for the most part, just like you said, you're not obligated to have to tell them everything you do when you're not with them.
Yeah. With the STI also, like, by the law, you have to tell someone you're sleeping with that you have certain STI.
Yes.
Only if you have the STI. If you don't see them for a month and you had the STI in between, you don't need to.
Mm-hmm.
If you take antibiotics and you test negative. Even in that situation, you don't need to tell them you are sleeping with 3 other people. Just say, I'm having this STI. Are you sure you checked yourself?
Yeah,
I'm just
exactly.
always trying to protect the privacy, because I don't think that how I look at life is like, okay, I'm going to do A. What are my pluses? What are my advantages of this information? What are the disadvantages? Like, what is the advantage of telling someone I'm having 2 3 other people? I don't find
Mhm.
one, to be honest with you. We
Yeah.
can just have disadvantages, and that's why I wouldn't do it. But everyone, to each their own. If there is a different way, maybe if you want to manipulate someone and make them jealous, that's different, but that's not my game. I'm pretty honest and direct. I'm not like the art of seduction that I try to manipulate people indirectly. I don't do that. It's too much work for me. My whole life I prefer to have people I'm honest with, and of course
Mhm.
flirt and sexuality seduction in other ways. It's beautiful. I do that too, but doing all these manipulative moves, or like even with the texting, when I said that, it's like, okay, how do you think I should text him in 3 days? I'm like,
There's no
what
hard
is
and
all
fast
of
rules.
this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And folks think it's this recipe that you need to follow for it.
It's ego. It's
Oh.
only ego. We text someone, he doesn't text us, and then he texts us 3 days later, or she, and we say, she didn't text me 3 days. Let me text. I don't do it. Like, even some people have different communication styles. There are people that are younger, they're older. Everyone is different. And sometimes
Mhm.
they just text 3 days later. It doesn't make them disrespectful. It doesn't make them bad. Like, and then what, I'm going to wait 3 more days? No, I reply when I have the time in my convenience. And they reply
Mhm.
3 days later. Yeah. And I will choose if this works for me. If that communication style doesn't work for me, I will tell them, hey, I would appreciate if you want to see me to reply faster than every 3 days. And they can try. And if it doesn't work for me, then again, it's a deal breaker. Because if I want to make plans with someone, I don't want to wait 3 days.
Mhm.
It's just all about what we want in life. We can always communicate, and there are no rules. It's just what we want.
Yes. I think that's so important that there's no rules unless you agree upon them with that person. Hey,
Yeah.
our rule are we're always going to use a condom or whatever
Yeah.
that is. But as
Yeah.
far as like
That's the
communication,
boundaries. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So let's say we have um some really good friends and they're crushing on someone who's their close friend and they do want to just have a casual hookup with this person. They're not looking to change the friendship other than now maybe adding casual sex. How might somebody navigate a scenario like that?
I don't think it's possible, to be honest with you, because if you are having sex with your friend, then it's not your friend anymore, it's your lover. So you're changing the dynamics.
Mhm.
And it's going to be difficult for a while. From my own experience, I know that you can turn your lovers to your friends,
Mm.
but it takes time. It takes a couple of weeks or months, or like if you're hooking up with someone. And the issue is always when you let people go on a step 2, how do you tell them to go back to step 1? Once you allow them to cross certain boundary and you start sleeping with them, how do you, like, always think about, okay, what's the worst case scenario? How do I tell them at some point I don't want to sleep with them anymore? Are you going to be sleeping with them forever? Probably not.
Yeah.
So you're going to bring an
Can
awkward
you just go
situation.
back? Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. You can do it. I've done it many times in my life, but it will be difficult.
Mhm.
It's going to take a while because one of the parties is going to probably want more of that. It's not going to happen in the same time now. Oh, we are done. So if you really, really value your friends and you think that you have great friendship, it's better to not do it unless you both are completely crazy about each other. And then it's probably going to be more than just sex. Because if you have great friendship with someone and then you have chemistry and you're flirting, I don't think it's going to stay with casual sex. And that's fine.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's important because it's a scenario I would imagine quite a few people have expressed or even fantasized about and are unsure, like, is this going to ruin a friendship if I bring this up? Is it worth the following the fantasy or playing it out? And so most likely it won't ruin the friendship, but it will change it drastically
It
and maybe not
will.
even make it where it's
Yeah.
defined as a friendship anymore.
Yeah.
So I think
I
it's
think
good
it's
to
good
go
to
with a
talk.
warning. Yes.
Yeah, and talk about it. If you both are like flirting, you can tell, just be clear and say, look, I really like you. I think we have some heated time,
Hmm.
and like I see the sparkles. How do you feel about it? And, you know, I don't think that casual sex between friends would be the best idea because then, yeah, as I said, it's going to be hard to go back, but relationship could happen. Yeah.
Mm.
Sure, there are like polyamorous people and swingers, like they're all these different, but I'm just talking more about the vanilla majority of people. Like, sure,
Hmm.
if you're in a swinger society or polyamorous groups, like I lived in New York and half of my friends were polyamorous and many were swingers, and it was just totally normal to have sex with your friend and nobody would care.
Hmm.
It's a
But that's
different life.
usually those
It's,
friendships start with that understanding almost,
yeah,
and you know
yeah,
that about that person. So you are
exactly.
navigating that scenario the entire
Easily.
friendship.
Yeah. and it's
Yeah.
easier because it's a different mindset. But like for the majority of people, they are in a regular lifestyle, it's probably more difficult. And yeah, so I'm talking to these people. I don't want to like generalize that everyone would have a problem, because yeah, there are some special
Yeah. There's special, there's different communities.
departments. Yeah.
Yeah. And different scripts that people follow and understand, when it says, this is my friend versus um, uh, different types of scenarios. So it's really good to differentiate those for a lot of people who may be exploring that and wanting to, hey, I want casual sex with this person, or what it might look like afterwards. Um, what are some of the benefits? Because you said there's a lot of drawbacks. I'm sure a lot of us can talk about drawbacks all the time, because that's what we've been raised upon, is all the fear mongering of casual sex. But what are some of the positives that folks can look forward to having a casual sex
You
or
know,
having
it's
casual
like
sex?
health wise, it just gives you self esteem. Your skin is nice from orgasms. And if you're flirting, you just feel all this like dopamine. You're happy. Someone gives you attention. So, all these positive things are great. And then, of course, sexually, you can explore so much with casual hookups because you're not dating them. And if you have any sort of crazy fantasy, this is the place to talk about it. This is the place to say,
Mm,
hey, I want to try this out. Because a lot of times when you have someone you want to be with seriously, you're not going to tell them, oh, I want to suck your feet, or it's like whatever it is. But if you meet someone that you barely know and you are in this really erotic environment, you can just come up with all this craziness and don't feel
mm-hmm.
bad about it, because who knows, maybe you will not see them again. So
Yes.
yeah, I think like just
I
just sexually you can explore so much in this kind of environment.
Yeah, it kind of has that protectant factor against judgment.
Yeah.
Like with it casual, there's low risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Because if low risk, I'm just risking a hookup. And if you think I'm weird and don't want to talk to me, fine. There's other people. But if I'm
Yeah.
in this, like you said, longer term relationship and I bring something up in judgment and then people think I'm weird, it's a higher risk on that. And so, the lower risk, exploring those fantasies or new
Yeah.
things that you want to experiment with and try out. Um,
Absolutely, and that's the best part. And then, you can also live in the moment and just tell the guy, do this, do this, do this. I want this. You don't have to be worried. We should be worried with our boyfriends either, but that's how psychology works. I remember when I used to work as a dominatrix, there was the same thing. Like the guys would come to me and they said they would never tell their wife that they want to do certain fetish or fantasy, but they would not feel awkward with me.
mm,
So it's fascinating. Human psychology around sex is truly fascinating. And I loved writing the book and learn about, like, there's a huge part also about differences between men and women, because a lot of times in my life I would get attached to guys, they don't even have a mattress at home, or like a bed frame, they sleep on a mattress. I'm like, this is not what my rules are. Like, my rules are, I'm not going to end up with a guy like this. And he's great in bed, like it was fun, and I was just in love, and I was wasting my time pretty much. So I was like thinking, is our brain different than the male brain? Like, why is this happening to me and other women? Why do we fall in love? And I loved the research I was doing on that. That was fascinating. And also the
mm.
societal, like how we are raised, and
Oh, yeah.
culture, how it dictates our behavior mainly, actually. Because our brain is the same as male, and our hormones, sure, we might have more oxytocin, but there are also a lot of guys, they would have so much oxytocin rush from being with a woman. So it's not just that. I think it's truly just, it's the upbringing and the evolution. We still are probably used to having men around for survival from, who knows, even before agriculture. But from agricultural times, we were more forced into the monogamy and feel ashamed for having sex with some other man. And men were truly like controlling women and their
Yes.
sexuality until
Hmm.
today. It's still happening, but we are moving, and there is a revolution, I think, but it's just very slow because it's been since birth control, right, in the 60s. And that's when women start being more confident about having sex, because they're like, oh great, I don't have to be pregnant after I have sex with someone.
Yes.
So yeah,
Still have
it
control over my
is.
body and my
Yes,
choices.
yes, exactly. So, we're on a good way. And yeah, it was interesting. And what made me really sad also was a research study that I read, that the double standards, like when men have a lot of flowers, it's okay, women, it's not okay. And a lot of times, the sad part was that the women were doing the slut shaming as much
Mm-hmm.
as men. And that was really making me sad. So, we should not do that to other women. I think that that is absolute no go.
Yeah.
If a girl or woman has fun, okay, let her have fun. It doesn't have to be for you. But the slut shaming, just, it's so insecure, you
Yes, I
know.
think that it really is. It's more of a threatened thing, and so I need to bring you down to make myself feel better because I I couldn't even think about being empowered,
Hmm.
embracing my own sexuality. So I need to bring you back down to my level
Yeah,
by slut shaming instead of bringing you up and then bringing myself up in the same
yeah,
time.
yeah,
It's definitely so
exactly.
complex.
Mm.
The societal norms, but along with all of those things, just our internal needs, human needs. I think there's always that wanting that sense of belonging and wanting that sense to be wanted and desired. And it can be really fun to keep that going with hookups because then you can go to the next hookup and they're really desired um
Yeah. Yeah, it's
and
great for
keeping that
self-esteem, I
excitement. Oh
think. I
yeah.
really think for
Yeah.
women, they're open to that, and they like the idea. Not many women might not be hooking up yet, but they want to do it. And I think the book I wrote is really good for them to read it before they start as well, because then they read really, I wanted to write it as neutral as possible, so people, they are flirting with the idea to do it, want to read about what could happen, what could go wrong, what could go well, what do I do if this
Mm,
happens, what do I do before. And yeah, know yourself, what you want, as you said. Just know that's a hookup. You're going into it for fun, and that's it. If more happens, great. If not, great.
yeah.
It's so
But
simple.
go in knowing what you want from it. I think
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing and not just, oh, whatever happened, happened sometimes. Um, and then being really clear with that person that you're hooking up with. This is a hookup too, because
yeah,
that can also feel like it is um, you're dragging someone along and they're hoping for a relationship and you're
yeah,
thinking it's a
yeah.
hookup if you're not clear from the beginning. And so
Yeah,
that
it's
can
very
look
important. Yeah,
unethical, yeah, and just
yeah,
and harmful too. But
yeah. When
there's
I wrote the book, a lot of guys reached out to me and said, "But we get hurt too." I'm like, I know, many men suffer
yes,
too. So they
yes.
need to know, because, of course, it's not, I don't want to stereotype that men just want to have sex everywhere and women get hurt. No, guys get hurt too. So
Mm,
I think that's why it really works for men too, because the 25 tips are universal. Even guys can use them.
yeah.
you know some of them might be a little bit cookie, but some of them are like, probably 80% of them are useful for men too. And you know it's like, all on drinking, don't get too drunk. I think that's also a tough one. When you go on a first date, you don't want to be completely intoxicated. There is a chapter on, for victims, if something happens that's not okay, where to actually
Hmm.
go and what to do. And I want to let women know that certain things are not okay, and they
Yes.
should definitely reach out for help if something happens. So yeah, I think it was, it's 180 pages about, but it's straight to the point. I like to make things short and sweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So where can folks get your book?
Amazon is the best place, I think. Yeah, just
Okay.
Amazon. I mean, now they're selling it internationally. They're selling it in all
That's
sorts of
exciting.
bookstores. I think that Walmart had my book too, and Barnes and Noble online. So they have, all over Australia, Europe, India. It's interesting, and
Ah,
makes me very happy. But people can get it internationally at this point.
mm. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about the book's cover art because that was fascinating. I loved it. It was super fun and flirty.
Oh, yeah, it's
So,
so
what
cute.
inspired that?
So I wanted something colorful and pastel colors, and fun and friendly, as am I, but something sexy. And I actually hired Studio Proba from Oregon. I think they're in Portland. And
Mm.
originally is a German designer from Berlin, and she created the cover with her team. And I found she did such a great job with the little titties. And there are all sorts of titties, small and big, and all sorts of shapes, because that's how women are. We're all beautiful, but we're all different. And that
Hmm.
was the point with that
Oh,
cover.
so fun. Yeah, like I said, it was fun, flirtatious, and really, shows the differences too. The differences of my hookup culture, my hookup will look different than yours, and that's okay. There's no judgment on it. So I thought it was just
Exactly.
like layered
Yeah.
messages there, and it was super
Yeah.
fun. So,
Totally.
um, well, Leah, if we have some listeners who are thinking of finding a performance coach or wanting to talk to you more about your book and your services, where can they find you?
Just leahholmgren.com is the best. My first and last name. That's my website. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Leah, I want to say just thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about your book, giving us some tips on hooking up safely and having the most fun with it, and just some things to navigate when you are, wanting to have casual sex and hookups. Um, for all those listening, if you want to know more about our podcast or myself, you can go to saltysexcast.com. We have new swag, so hit up our store and tune in. We're on all major listening platforms. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to give us a thumbs up, share it with friends, give us a comment. Don't forget to subscribe, and anywhere else you're listening, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Salty Sex Cast. Ready for round 2? Find us on Facebook.